Last night, the Stephen Colbert Show exploded into chaos as host Stephen Colbert clashed with guest Elon Musk in a fiery, no-holds-barred confrontation. The tension erupted into a viral storm, leaving audiences stunned as insults flew and tempers flared. The stage was set for a blockbuster episode. Stephen Colbert, known for his sharp wit and incisive commentary, welcomed Elon Musk, the polarizing tech titan behind Tesla, SpaceX, and XAI. Expectations ran high for a lively discussion, given Musk's reputation for bold, unfiltered opinions and Colbert's knack for challenging powerful figures. The audience buzzed with anticipation as the show began, the familiar theme music fading under the roar of applause. Colbert, in his signature suit, flashed a grin, but his eyes hinted at something sharper tonight. Musk, seated across from him, leaned back with a confident smirk, his casual demeanor belying the storm about to unfold. The interview started innocently enough. Colbert opened with a light jab about Musk's ambitious Mars colonization plans, asking if he was planning to ditch Earth for a Martian penthouse. The audience chuckled, and Musk fired back, "Stephen, I'll send you a ticket to Mars, but you'll have to handle the alien customs agents." The crowd laughed, but there was an edge to Musk's tone, a subtle challenge that didn't go unnoticed. Colbert, sensing the undercurrent, pivoted to Musk's recent ventures, particularly XAI's Grok 3, the AI designed to rival ChatGPT. "So, Elon," Colbert said, leaning forward, "is Grok 3 going to save humanity or just make us obsolete faster?" It was a classic Colbert setup, layered with humor but probing for a reaction. Musk's smirk faded slightly. "Grok 3's about truth, Stephen. It cuts through the noise, unlike some late-night hosts who thrive on it." The audience gasped, a mix of shock and delight rippling through the studio. Colbert's smile tightened, but he pressed on, undeterred. "Truth, huh? Sounds like a convenient way to dodge accountability when you tweet something that tanks Tesla's stock." The jab landed hard and the crowd roared. Musk's eyes narrowed, his fingers tapping the armrest. "You want to talk accountability?" he shot back. "How about the media twisting every word I say to fit their narrative? You're part of that machine, Stephen." The exchange marked the first spark of real hostility. Colbert, usually quick to diffuse with humor, leaned into the fight. "I'm a comedian, Elon, not a news anchor. My job's to call out nonsense, and you've got a PhD in that." The audience erupted, but Musk wasn't laughing. "You call it nonsense," he said, his voice low and deliberate, "but I'm building the future while you're cracking jokes for clout." The studio fell silent for a split second, the weight of the insult hanging in the air. Colbert's jaw clenched, and he fired back, "Building the future? Or just buying it with your billions?" The confrontation was now a full-blown spectacle. The audience, torn between discomfort and fascination, hung on every word. Producers in the control room exchanged nervous glances, sensing the segment spiraling out of control. Colbert pushed harder, bringing up Musk's controversial X posts, including one where he'd called a politician a spineless opportunist. "Do you ever regret hitting send?" Colbert asked, his tone dripping with sarcasm. Musk didn't flinch. "Regret? No. I regret the cowards who clutch their pearls instead of facing reality." The crowd gasped again, louder this time as Colbert's face reddened. "Cowards?" he repeated, his voice rising. "You're calling out cowardice while hiding behind a keyboard?" The tension was palpable, each man digging in deeper. Musk accused Colbert of pandering to woke elites, while Colbert shot back that Musk's free speech absolutism was just a cover for bullying. The back and forth grew sharper, the insults more personal. Musk mocked Colbert's ivory tower comedy, and Colbert retorted that Musk's ego was bigger than his Starship rocket. The audience was on edge, some cheering, others murmuring, in shock. Social media was already ablaze, clips of the exchange spreading like wildfire across X, with hashtags like Colbert vs. Musk trending within minutes. As the segment neared its end, the hostility showed no signs of cooling. Colbert, visibly agitated, leaned across his desk, his voice cutting. "Elon, you act like you're above everyone else, but you're just a guy with too much money and not enough humility." Musk's eyes flashed with anger. "And you're just a guy with a microphone who thinks he's a moral arbiter," he spat. The audience held its breath, sensing the breaking point was near. Would they rein it in, or would this escalate into something even uglier? The camera zoomed in on Colbert's face, his expression a mix of fury and determination. Musk, unyielding, stared back, his posture defiant. The stage was a powder keg, and the next word could ignite it. What would push this confrontation over? The edge? Colbert broke the silence, his voice sharp as a blade. "You know, Elon, for someone who claims to champion truth, you sure love dodging it when it's inconvenient." The audience murmured, sensing the gloves were off. Musk's lips curled into a cold smile. "Dodge? I'm right here, Stephen, facing you and your sanctimonious shtick." The word shtick landed like a slap, and the crowd gasped, a mix of shock and nervous laughter rippling through the studio. Colbert's eyes narrowed, his fingers gripping the edge of his desk. Sanctimonious. That's rich coming from the guy who plays Messiah on X every other day. The exchange was a verbal cage match, each man landing blows with precision. Colbert leaned forward, his tone dripping with disdain. "Let's talk about X, since you love it so much. You've turned it into a circus, amplifying chaos while pretending it's free speech." Musk's jaw tightened, but he fired back without missing a beat. "Chaos? No, Stephen, it's clarity. X shows the world unfiltered, not curated by gatekeepers like you." The audience erupted, some cheering Musk's defiance, others booing his jab. The divide in the room mirrored the online frenzy, where X users were live tweeting the showdown, memes and hot takes flooding the platform. Colbert wasn't backing down. "Gatekeepers? I'm just asking questions, Elon. Like why you're so cozy with fringe voices who spread lies." The accusation was a Molotov cocktail, and Musk's face darkened. "Lies? You mean opinions you don't like? Typical media trick? Label dissent as dangerous." The crowd's reaction was a chaotic blend of applause and jeers, the energy in the room electric. Producers in the control booth were sweating, their headsets buzzing with urgent chatter about whether to cut to commercial. But the cameras stayed locked on the two men, capturing every blistering moment. The confrontation escalated as Colbert zeroed in on Musk's business empire. "You talk about building the future, but what about the workers at Tesla? The lawsuits, the safety complaints? That's your legacy, too." Musk's eyes flashed, with anger. "You want to cherry-pick headlines? Tesla's pushing humanity forward while you're peddling gotcha moments for ratings." Colbert shot back. "Ratings? At least I'm not selling snake oil disguised as innovation." The audience gasped, the insult cutting deep. Musk leaned forward, his voice low and menacing. "Careful, Stephen. You're out of your depth." The personal attacks were relentless now, each man tearing into the other's public persona. Colbert mocked Musk's genius image, calling him a self-proclaimed visionary who's mostly vision and no follow-through. Musk retorted that Colbert was a corporate puppet masquerading as a rebel. The insults were raw, unscripted, and deeply personal, stripping away the polish of late-night TV. The audience was riveted, some shouting encouragement, others whispering in disbelief. On X, the viral storm intensified, with clips of the exchange racking up millions of views. Hashtags like Colbert roasts Musk and Elon fights back trended globally, fueling a digital firestorm. As the segment wore on, the tension showed no signs of easing. Colbert, his face flushed, brought up Musk's recent comments on AI regulation, accusing him of playing God with tech that could ruin lives. Musk scoffed. Ruin lives? I'm trying to save them, unlike you, who's just stirring the pot for laughs. The crowd roared, but Colbert wasn't laughing. Save lives? He snapped. You're so obsessed with being the hero, you don't see the collateral damage. Musk's response was icy. And you're so obsessed with being clever, you don't see how irrelevant you're becoming. The studio was a pressure cooker, the air thick with hostility. Colbert's usual charm was gone, replaced by a steely resolve to take Musk down a peg. Musk, equally unyielding, seemed determined to expose Colbert as a hypocrite. The audience was on edge, sensing the confrontation was building to a breaking point. Whispers of, "This is insane," and "They're going too far," circulated among the crowd. In the control room, producers debated intervening, but the ratings were through the roof, and the world was watching. As the segment neared its close, Colbert delivered a scathing line. Elon, you're not a revolutionary, you're a billionaire. Throwing tantrums when the world doesn't bow. Musk's face was a mask of fury. And you're a clown who thinks his desk is a throne, he spat. The audience held its breath, the silence deafening. The camera caught every detail. Colbert's clenched fist, Musk's blazing eyes. Something was about to snap, but what would it be? The tension was a living thing, coiling tighter with each passing second. Colbert, his voice low and venomous, leaned closer. You call me a clown? At least I'm not delusional enough to think I can buy respect. The audience gasped, the jab slicing through the room. Musk's hands gripped the armrests, his knuckles white. Respect? He growled. I earn it by doing, not by pandering to a room full of sheep. The crowd erupted, some cheering Musk's defiance, others jeering his arrogance. The studio was a cauldron of noise, but the two men remained locked in their own world, oblivious to the chaos. Colbert's eyes glinted with a dangerous edge. Doing? You mean disrupting everything and calling it progress? Your companies thrive on hype, not results. Musk's laugh was sharp, humorless. Hype? Tesla's on every road, SpaceX is in the stars, and you're still stuck in a studio, recycling the same tired jokes. The audience roared, split between loyalties. On X, the confrontation was a global spectacle, with users posting frenetic updates. Colbert's tearing Musk apart, one tweet read, while another countered, Elon's exposing Stephen's fake moral high ground. The hashtags Colbert vs Musk and Late Night Meltdown dominated feeds, clips amassing tens of millions of views. The fight took a darker turn as Colbert zeroed in on Musk's public persona. You love playing the victim, don't you? Poor Elon. Misunderstood genius, persecuted by the evil media. His sarcasm was a blade, and Musk's face flushed with rage. Victim? I don't need your pity, Stephen. I'm fighting a system that props up hacks like you. The crowd gasped, the insult raw and personal. Colbert's smile was gone, replaced by a cold fury. Hacks? I'm here every night speaking truth to power, while you're tweeting conspiracy theories to your cult. The word cult was a detonator. Musk's voice rose, cutting through the studio. Cult? My followers think for themselves, unlike your audience, clapping like trained seals. The audience booed loudly, their loyalty to Colbert ignited. He seized the moment, his voice booming, Trained seals? These are real people, Elon, not your ex-bots pumping your ego. The crowd cheered, their roar shaking the studio. Producers in the control room were frantic, their screens flashing with viewer metrics spiking to unprecedented levels. The world was glued to this implosion, and no one dared look away. The confrontation grew uglier, the insults more vicious. Musk accused Colbert of selling out to corporate overlords, while Colbert fired back that Musk's free speech crusade was a sham to dodge accountability. Each jab was a wound, each retort a counterstrike. The audience was a sea of conflicting emotions, some shouting support, others murmuring in discomfort. The raw hostility was unlike anything the Stephen Colbert Show had ever aired, a far cry from its usual blend of humor and insight. On X, the viral storm raged on, with influencers and pundits weighing in, some calling it must-watch TV, others labeling it a train wreck. As the segment pushed forward, Colbert took a bold swing. "You talk about saving humanity, but your actions say otherwise. Your factories, your labor disputes, your reckless tweets, they hurt people, Elon." Musk's eyes burned with contempt. "Hurt people? I'm creating jobs, pushing boundaries, while you're whining from a cushy chair." Colbert's face tightened. "Cushy? I'm holding a mirror to your chaos, and you can't stand the reflection." Musk leaned forward, his voice a low snarl. "Keep holding that mirror, Stephen. All I see is a jealous nobody." The audience was stunned into silence, the weight of Musk's words hanging heavy. Colbert's jaw clenched, his composure fraying. "Jealous?" he repeated, his voice trembling with rage. "I'm not jealous of a man who's so desperate for validation he'll burn everything down to get it." The crowd gasped, the accusation searing. Musk's face was a storm of fury, his next words poised to strike. The camera lingered on the two men, their hatred palpable. The studio was a battlefield, and the final blow was coming. What would shatter this already fractured night? Musk's voice cut through the silence, sharp and venomous. "Burn everything down? You're the one torching decency with your smug, self-righteous act." The audience erupted, a chaotic mix of boos and cheers splitting the room. Colbert's eyes blazed, his hands slamming onto his desk as he stood. "Decency? You lecture me on decency while you dodge responsibility for every mess you make?" The crowd roared, their loyalty to Colbert surging. Musk rose to his feet, matching Colbert's stance, his voice a low growl. "Responsibility? I'm carrying the weight of the future while you're just a loudmouth with a laugh track." The studio was an inferno, the air thick with raw hostility. The confrontation had transcended a mere interview, becoming a public crucifixion of egos. On X, the world was ablaze, posts flooding in with millions dissecting every word. "Colbert's dismantling Musk," one user wrote, while another countered, "Elon's exposing Stephen's hypocrisy." The hashtags Colbert vs. Musk and Late Night Explosion were inescapable, the viral clips now viewed by tens of millions. Producers in the control room were paralyzed, their screens flashing with record-breaking viewership numbers. This was no longer a show. It was a cultural moment. Colbert, his face flushed with fury, took a step toward Musk, his voice booming. "You think you're untouchable, don't you? The genius who can say anything, do anything, because you've got billions to back it up." Musk's eyes narrowed, his response dripping with contempt. "And you think you're the people's hero? You're a corporate shill hiding behind a desk, Stephen." The audience gasped, the insult a dagger. Colbert's voice trembled with rage. "A shill? I'm here night after night, calling out people like you who think they're above the rules." The crowd was on its feet, their cheers and jeers a deafening cacophony. Musk jabbed a finger toward Colbert. "Rules? You mean the ones you twist to fit your narrative? You're no different from the mob you claim to fight." Colbert's face was a mask of outrage. "Mob? These are my people, Elon, and they see through your charade." He turned to the audience, arms outstretched, and they roared in support, their applause shaking the studio. Musk scoffed, his voice cutting through the noise. "Your people? They're just here for the spectacle, and you're giving them a cheap one." The final straw came when Colbert, his patience obliterated, delivered a blistering ultimatum. "You know what, Elon? If you can't handle a real conversation, maybe you don't belong here." The audience gasped, sensing the endgame. Musk's face contorted with fury. "Handle it? I'm done with your circus, Stephen." He ripped off his mic, the sound of it hitting the floor echoing through the studio. The crowd was in chaos, some chanting Colbert's name, others shouting for Musk. Colbert, unyielding, pointed to the exit. "Then go. This is my stage, and I'm done with your tantrums." Musk froze, his eyes locked on Colbert's, the moment stretching into eternity. Then, with a final glare, he stormed off the set, his footsteps heavy against the polished floor. The audience exploded, their reactions a mix of shock, triumph, and disbelief. Colbert stood alone, his chest heaving, as the cameras captured his defiant stare. The studio lights seemed brighter, the air charged with victory. He turned to the crowd, his voice steady but fierce. "That's what happens when you come for the truth and can't handle it." The show cut to black, but the world was far from done. On X, the moment Musk stormed out became an instant legend. Clips shared endlessly with captions like "Colbert owned Musk" and "Elon's meltdown was epic." The confrontation was a seismic event, sparking debates about power, ego, and accountability. Colbert's stand was hailed as a triumph, his refusal to back down a rallying cry for those who'd long awaited someone to challenge Musk's untouchable aura. The Stephen Colbert Show had never seen such a night, and its echoes would resonate for years. As the dust settled, one thing was clear. Colbert had won, not just the argument, but the stage, the audience, and the moment.